Eternal Return is a medieval Gothic romance about two lovers who get stuck in a perpetual curse where they have to sacrifice themselves for the other to become alive again. It's about sacrifice and communication as you evolve through relationships. It's quite a challenging film to do. It wasn't only sort of our first film that as a short film, but it was set in the period. We also had falcons, of course, prosthetics and special effects, computer graphics, animation to add on to the pile. The birds were amazing. We had a wonderful guy, Chris, who just came on board and just gave more than anyone could have asked of him to give. And initially for the shoot, we had this kind of really gothic bird, and then after the first take, the bird actually got afraid of the crew and it flew away. But because we were shooting during the Olympics in the second shoot, the tracker didn't work because the police had blocked Chris's channel for the signal with the bird. So we actually lost the bird, but he found it 4 days later in Kent. And we had to, for the rest of the shoot, we used a Harris hawk. And another amusing moment was we had to get the birds to fly together in the same shot, and Chris and I had to stand there and literally hold the birds and just throw them into each other. So it was quite an adventure, all the different aspects.
So the story was created from various different inspirations that we had together. We merged them all. Firstly, we'd been to this farm that had beautiful gardens and a walled garden. It was really romantic and loads of opportunity to shoot editorials there. The idea quickly snowballed from the idea of a fashion shoot into a film, because there were so many elements that we wanted to incorporate into the story that it became impossible to do as a shoot with images alone. The inspiration for the transition between human and scarecrow form came from an exhibition that we went to about the Book of the Dead, and we incorporated Ra, which was a falcon that sort of ascended to heaven and came back down as a reincarnation of the deceased. The shoot lasted around 5 days for the first time, and Vic and I didn't sleep at all. While we were shooting, we were trying to organise everyone and trying to feed everyone, and then at night we were also trying to organise all the props and everything to get everything organised for the shoot. The call time was at 3 a.m. most nights, so yeah, we were round the clock just doing everything, because I don't think we knew at the time how many people we would need to be involved in it, so we ended up doing quite a few jobs. But it was a learning curve.
The castle dungeons we used were the chapel at Nunhead Cemetery, so we looked around the Victorian cemeteries in London, and the one in Nunhead was the best to use, because we had the woodland had to allow falcons there because of their birds of prey. It would disturb the natural wildlife. And then we also used their woodland, and we went out to Suffolk and used we found some amazing people who allowed us to use their property for free, and we used their pond and another woodland as well, which just happened to have these beautiful old kind of aged hollow trees. And then we also had the studio in London, Cineco Studios, where we built the hideaway, the interior, where they walk in and then go down into the underground of the tree, was the sort of hideaway for the living duration of the curse period. From a directing perspective, the supporting actor is actually the scarecrows, which are the suspended form of the human counterpart. They were made by Eva, Paula and Adrian, and they did them by taking a live cast of the actors' faces, where they had to just get entombed in this plaster. And then it was quite brave, actually, just having a twig stuck up your nose to breathe. And then they built this latex skin so that when you look at the Hessian overlay, you can see that there's sort of a human skin underneath, and it's all kind of it's transformed quite directly from the human part. They were quite beautiful, and we're really happy with them. They're very effective. Part of resolving the communication issue, and actually it wasn't just the communication between the characters, but how to communicate the story to the audience, just because it got quite complicated, was to have a poetic voiceover. And we really like the way that it's been written by Peter Moore. It's sort of in an old worldly language, and it's really complementary to both the score and the flow of the film, because it has that kind of romantic quality about it. And then Lucinda, who's added in the score, has just strengthened that and complemented the whole sort of sound process in communicating both the emotion of the characters and also conveying the story at the same time, but in a sort of indirect way, so it's more intriguing and it fits much better with the character of the piece.
Okay, I first came to be involved with the project Eternal Return through meeting Victoria Keon-Cohen, and she presented me with some of the poetry that had been written for the piece and asked me if I would do a narrative for it, if I would do the narration, which we did a couple of months ago. And yeah, we did it in several different ways as an explanation to the images that you see on the screen. It's a very, very simple story of loss and rebirth. So it's not something that, you know, I had to think too hard about before I went and did it. It was very, very self-explanatory, and the poetry was written very, very well to lend the narrative to what was going on the screen. And because it's her first project, and as a first-time director, it kind of pleased me to go in and do something for it, to lend a voice to it. It was a very, very interesting thing to do. Sort of like you see an artist at the birth of what she's doing, and that's always interesting. It's kind of, you know, it's that sort of first taste of what could be. As an actor, of course, I have lots of friends who would have relations and then themselves sort of like have a certain amount of bipolarity. I think it's very, very common in the entertainment industry to have people who are the yin and yang of those sort of extremes. You know, I've worked with many people who are incredibly productive and have huge output due to their talent and their ambition. But also the downside of that is that they go through these lapse moments of you know, depression after those highs. And, you know, it's a very, very common problem, bipolarity in England. And it's very, very difficult for families who have to sort of sit back almost like helplessly and watch people go through things that they didn't, first of all, you know, didn't choose to. And it's very, very tough for them, not only tough for the families who've got to sit powerless by while this happens, but for the people who are actually going through the process. In the same way as in Eternal Return, the girl's got to go through the process of the death of the boy, and the boy's got to go through the process of the death of the girl. And there's nothing they can change about that. The only thing they can change is how they're going to respond, rather than this knee-jerk reaction. So I think, you know, in some way that the film, because it's a film of extremes, of life and death, birth, rebirth, it's where you evolve to. And I think for myself, I suppose, as an actor, it's a constant process of evolution. For Victoria's the first-time director, it's the beginning of her evolution. And for people who are suffering from this illness, every day is an evolution in some way or other.
The whole process has been very long. It was incredibly challenging. From a tiny idea to do a fashion shoot editorial to film productions has been quite massive, and it wouldn't have happened without all the people who have supported us, either from their skills and talents and to contributing whatever crowdfunding support they could, and it would never have happened. And it's something which has been a massive support to my new career as a film director, and it's really beautiful that so many people have believed in this story and have believed in everyone making it. So really it's something I'll never forget, and extend a big thank you to everyone involved.